Come on, Duke. Slow down, boy. Slow down. Take your time.
It was a good time because I had not worked for quite a while. I had gone through, I was doing a lot of stand-up comedy, a lot of writing. I was employed by both Paramount and Warner Brothers as a writer. And Barry Levinson gave me a shot in Good Morning Vietnam. And then I was luckily to survive what Ron Shelton called the worst audition in the history of mankind he ever saw for Bull Durham. He says, the worst audition I ever saw, hire him immediately. And then luckily after that, I got Batman.
Nice talking with you, Wayne.
The rich. You know why they're so odd? Because they can afford to be. I mean, look at this mirror. Maybe it should be Bruce Wayne.
So those three, big movies in a row that did very well. So that led to Arliss. Yeah, that was a good run. There wasn't many lines in the script. And my agent says there's not very lines, but it's a baseball movie. You like baseball, and it's Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon. It's going to be a good big movie. So I walk in and I talk to my friend Bruno Kirby, the late, great Bruno Kirby. And we had just done Good Morning Vietnam together. And I swore by this guy. This guy was as good an acting teacher as anybody. He was as good a human being as anybody. So I spoke to him about the pitching coach, who did not have many lines. He really didn't. I don't know if he had 8 lines in the whole script. And Bruno talked to me about the characters, saying, well, it seems to me that in the minor leagues, you have a manager and a pitching coach. And that's pretty much it in the minor leagues back then of a staff. And so if the manager gets promoted, more than likely he's going to take his pitching coach with him. So I said, okay, that's all I need. I got it. He's a yes man. That's all I need to know is he's a yes man. So that's when I decided everything I was going to parrot everything he said. Now, my dad had played ball. My dad was a good baseball player. In fact, he had one time had a tryout for the famous Newark Bears teams in the late 30s, early 40s, which was the AAA team of the New York Yankees. Phil Rizzuto was on that team. Great. My dad was a pretty good ball player. Didn't make the team, but he was a good ball player. But he played in the service and all that stuff. So from him, I got all the hum baby stuff. Hum baby, I mean, nobody here. I got it, you take it, let it go. So I got all that stuff. So what I did when I went into the audition was when they fed the line, which might have been one word, I would say whatever the line was, like, see what's going on out there, or something, or, whatever it was. It was like, a lot of stuff going on out there. I go, yeah, a lot of stuff going on out there. Okay, baby, come on, baby. So I was just going crazy. And so he said that was the worst audition I ever saw, hire him immediately. Because he thought I would add a color. See, Ron was thinking about putting together a ball club. And he knew that everybody had to have a role player. Remember, Ron is a ball player. Thank God, he invited me to the party. Ron wanted guys who could play. And in fact, he held like a 2-week camp, like a preseason camp before we started shooting, because he wanted to make sure everybody looked good on film. And he actually replaced the original first baseman, whose name I don't know and probably better not know. He actually replaced him and hired the guy who played the first baseman. And he was, and our technical advisor at that time for the movie was the coach of the Durham Bulls at the time, who was a young guy by the name of Grady Little. Yeah, so he was our technical advisor. He was very fun, very funny. Grady's a very funny guy. And he was wonderful. Got to remember, when you're shooting a baseball movie, most of it was fun, was the batting practice before we showed stuff. And once you're shooting baseball is very difficult, because you have to remember, what does it take for stop and think, what does it take for just a ground out to shoot, let's say a ground out to third base? First, you have to have the camera on the pitcher. Now you've got to turn the camera around and shoot from behind the pitcher or inside the pitcher, and that means all the extras have to be behind home plate. Okay? Then you got to get the shot and make sure he hits the ball in the direction of the left side of the infield. Then you got to cut to that, which means now the camera has got to be on the first base side, so you have to move hundreds of extras, or thousands of extras, to that side of the field, because you don't have a full stadium. You only got as much as you need. So you have to shoot everybody there. So you have to move all those extras to that side, like that side of the field. Now he catches it. He catches the ball. He has to throw it to first base. Now you got to move all those extras to the other side of the field, behind the first base. So there's a crowd behind first base. So right then you have talked about at least an hour's worth of shooting, because you have to set up and reset up and reset up. That's for what, 5 seconds? So that's what you have to understand. So you usually shoot everything in one direction. All the shots, you try to block them out. All the shots that are going out in one direction, which is why usually our shots, the shots of me and in the dugout, or any dugout shots, were usually the last thing shot, because you didn't have to light the whole field or anything. You could light a smaller spot. You know, that was in a dugout, so you could control that. And there didn't have to be that many extras, because you're basically shooting in the dugout. So technically, it's tough. I remember it was cold, because we shot in November in North Carolina, which gets cold. I mean, if you see like the meeting on the mound and stuff, you'll see our breath coming out constantly. It was very cold, especially when you're shooting at 3, 4 in the morning, which we were. Those are the scenes on the field, but it was great. You still were going to the ballpark. You know, you still were. I mean, there's worse things to do. I remember our very first shot I was in was a scene that we're in the clubhouse. And it was one of the first scenes where the ball club all got together, because they had shot in some scenes with Tim and Susan and Kevin. But this was the first clubhouse scene. So we are in the clubhouse for the first time after a game, and the assistant director, who warms up, you know, the background and warms up everybody, says, okay, you're just coming back after a game. You just won the game, so everybody's really excited and everything. And, you know, so let's have a lot of excitement. So we're all there, hey, yeah, good win, good win. And immediately Ron goes, cut! What's that? And he said, let me explain you something. The thing about baseball is it's routine. It's not football where you play 16 games. You're playing 160 games or whatever. You've been playing this game every day of your life since you're probably 9 years old. What you're worried really, as my dad would say, and you can bleep this, he'd say, when you go after a game, it's routine. You're going to play again tomorrow. You're going to play. He goes, it's routine. Yeah, you might feel good because you got to hit it, but it's routine. What you're really worried about is where are we going to eat and where are the girls? There's a euphemism for the word girls that I won't use. But that's what you're worried about. It's not nothing to see. So it is routine, and which is something I kept with me through Arliss, that all this stuff is routine. It's a guy running a business. But he's 100% right. It's routine. Whenever I see these guys, that's bullshit. It's like they've been doing, especially in baseball. Yeah, you might have a big one. Big games. They're big games and stuff. But that's the first thing. But it was routine, which I loved. He said the reason most sports movies fail, and they suck, and most sports movies do suck. Doesn't mean I don't watch them all and I don't like sports movies, but they mostly suck. And as Ron said, it's because they're told from the point of view of the fan. And the fan only cares about one thing. Did the team win or lose? That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care how you got there, what they did, what they did the night. They don't care as long as you win. Best proof of the pudding is a guy look at Lenny Dykstra. Now, Lenny Dykstra in New York is beloved. And there's probably not 10 human beings on the planet whose track record looks sleazier than Lenny Dykstra. But he's loved in New York because they won. And I get it too, but history's history. Now, the reason that Ron's movie was more authentic anyway, is that he would say, I don't know what the fan is thinking. I know what the second baseman is thinking. That's who I was. He's thinking, I'm trying to keep my job. And that's real. It's a guy doing a job. And there's no big game. Bull Durham doesn't have a big game. Also, that's the other thing most sports movies stink, because it's about the big game. And there's no big games. I mean, how many big games are there? It's like, Miracle on Ice is a big game. But that takes on different implications. But big games, your best sports movies don't have big games. Raging Bull doesn't have a big game. The Hustler doesn't have a big game. The Bad News Bears I suppose has a big game, but they lose, they don't care. But most of your betters, The Hustler, the most Requiem for a Heavyweight, your best sports movies don't have a big game. They just don't. I mean, you're about characters and everything. So that was something about Ron. I was very, that I learned from him.
What's our record, Larry?
8-16.
8-16. How'd we ever win 8?
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's not a sports movie, and this is the same thing I had in Arliss. It is not a baseball movie in that people will say it's not a baseball movie. Well, it's a movie about characters who work in baseball, in the field of baseball. It's like Arliss. I once had the great writer Fran Lebowitz, great acerbic writer in New York, who came up to me at a party one time with chain smoking. She said, "I hate sports, but I love your show." And I said, it's because it's not about sports. It's about characters who work in the world of sports. That's totally different. That's totally different.
Like the sound of this video? All of our music was licensed from Soundstripe, a subscription-based royalty-free music library for filmmakers, podcasters, YouTubers, and more. Soundstripe. Keep creating.